Everyone loves a good model railway. You can lay track, run trains, solve shunting puzzles, pretend to run a realistic timetable, spend ages modelling scenery, and, when all else fails, pretend to be a vengeful giant and uproot trees with your bare hands. But unless you have an entire barn to yourself, sooner or later you run out of space. Here is where the PC steps in, with train simulators allowing miles of virtual track to run your model trains on, and most coming with route editors to let you create your own model railway when driving realistic routes becomes a bore. But this of course is Timberwolf stuff, where sooner or later we ask the question, what if you only had a 12 MHz 286? Well, there's a small chance, in fact a vanishingly tiny chance, you might have stumbled upon PCRR by Lewis Software. But of course, this is the little corner of the internet which loves forgotten games nobody else has ever heard of. So what is PCRR? It's a very early attempt to bring the world of Rails to the PC screen, and it, well, kinda shows it. You get up to 5 trains, each of a fixed length, and can make them speed up or slow down with the function keys. Each junction can be controlled using the appropriate letter key. And that's about it. Trains wander around the screen following the rails, and whichever directions you've set those junctions to. Not any drama. Any aspiring Gomez Adams would be disappointed to find that trains merely stop when they encounter a situation that would result in a crash. A feature the developer was quite proud of. There are a surprising number of maps included, from simple loops to complex switching puzzles and some rather sillier options. I'm not sure though which of these originally shipped with the game. There are supposed to be 20, but like a third-hand pirated copy of 4D Sports Driving, PCRR tended to gain and lose maps as each new person uploaded it to a new bulletin board. For example, we never had this TV map in our copy, but I'm sure a couple of maps I do remember are missing. Once you get over the primitive nature and the make-your-own-fun ethos of the game, there's a surprising amount to do. With a little imagination, you can run one of the loops like a model railway, setting some trains going and then making others stop at whichever bit of track you designate to be a station. Or you could take one of those more complex maps and solve its shunting puzzle. There's also a map editor for you to create your own puzzles, or possibly map out the intended track work for your own model railway. PCRR having been released in an era where both spare bedrooms and model railway locomotives were not catastrophically expensive. But when I mention that map editor, I'm not giving you quite the true story of playing this game in the late 1980s. See, the controls for the map editor are not entirely obvious, and the copy of this we had downloaded came without any README file explaining how to use it. I spent hours pressing every key on the keyboard, but other than putting the editor in a mode where I couldn't quit, I never managed to figure out how to make a complete track. Why did it not have instructions? Well, downloading it from a bulletin board might have been a bit naughty, because what little information I can find suggests this was a commercial release. In fact, an astonishingly stiff $35. Lewis Software don't appear to have produced anything else, and the PO Box address suggests this was an individual programmer who'd just made a thing and decided to sell it. Possibly by 1989 they'd decided to upload it for free, or it was in that grey area of abandonware, or, well, BBSs were a hive of piracy after all. And this is where I get to the point of this video. While the software exists on the internet today, almost all of the information surrounding its creation and use does not. And that's an important part to miss. These are 3.5-inch floppy disks. If I still had a drive capable of reading them, I would undoubtedly find all of these are dead. Magnetism leaked out years ago, and unlike a tape, where the hiss gets worse and worse, but you can still on some level listen to it, floppy disks will just stop working once the signal isn't strong enough to distinguish between a 1 and a 0. But this doesn't matter. Because when these did work, people copied them to other storage mediums. And to other mediums, as those new mediums also rotted away. You can still go to the Internet Archive or your friendly local online game store and download the files on these discs. Providing society keeps going and continues to believe that maintaining an archive of historic files on the internet is a good use of its time, you will always be able to play a budget re-release of Jack Nicklaus Golf. Someone playing the game for the first time now will not have that context of putting this disc into a floppy drive and looking out through net curtains at a street full of Ford Escorts and Vauxhall Cavaliers, wishing they had a powerful enough computer and enough pocket money saved up to get the big box VGA version with the course editor. That context is locked in here, and this is also dying. My memories of events long ago fade just like these discs. But when my memory loses data, it doesn't sit there going and then finishing with a read error. It fills in the gaps by making things up. From other memories, things I've read, maybe that dream 2 weeks ago when I had a bit too much cheese before bedtime. And living in our modern world, where getting content and clicks and advertising money is more important than fact-checking. A world where people lie about what happened yesterday, let alone what happened 20 years ago. That has the same effect on an easily influenced memory as putting a powerful magnet next to one of these floppy disks. When I made my Quid game review of Mobile One Rally Championship, I started to disbelieve my own recollection that it was marketed as a sim. It was only finding a scan of November 1999's Edge magazine which confirmed that yes, indeed, previews and reviews of the time used the S word consistently. It's as important to archive these surrounding materials as much as it is the games themselves. Just like streaming an album wouldn't give you the liner notes, we need people to scan in old magazines, to preserve pages of digitizer, to understand the world in which these games existed, how they were perceived and why. This is why I make videos about distant memories, of playing things like PCRR and Neoza, even though I know the recognisability that gets frequent searches and a click-through rate YouTube doesn't utterly despair at are missing. Even though I can't find any more information to give you than this existed? The dream is that one day I'll put one of these up and the original creator, or someone who knew them, will get in touch. Perhaps even if it's only Lewis Software looking for their $35. But until then, the mere act of circulating the tapes is worthwhile. Because this was just as much a part of PC gaming as the Wolfenstein, Doom, Null Modem Cables, Quake online deathmatch story. A story repeated by far more people than actually had one of these at the time. And more importantly, I do it to record the context of things like this. This game was entertaining in the late 80s because the idea that a computer could give you all the model railways you could ever wish for was exciting, no matter how primitive they appeared on screen. And if that seems like a cry for help from an entertainment-impoverished time, then that is the context in which this existed. There was no getting your phone out your pocket during a slow moment, no YouTube to watch, no Twitter to argue on, only 4 channels of pre-programmed content, and if you wanted more books or music or videos or indeed games, then you had to go to a physical shop and buy them. Imagine the boredom and state of disconnection of a long-haul flight, and then think that was life, all the time. Although, maybe in the 35 years since then, we have invented better things to take on a plane than an Amstrad PPC 640 and a copy of PCRR.